Hi guys, welcome back to the Catch-Up. Now, I've got something very exciting planned for the next Catch-Up episode and it's being shot tomorrow. So, in the interim, I thought I'm not going to not do a Catch-Up episode this week. Instead, with the whole Origin theme, we're going to dive into some really good questions that have come through the Roo crew and we're going to have a chat about it. And I am joined by none other than the guru himself. Welcome.
With the whole Origin thing.
Did I say that?
This is my be-all and end-all. This is what gets me up in the morning, Kat. This
you know
Origin
how I
thing.
feel. You know how I feel about the Origin. But last week we did an Origin-themed episode. This week we're also going to have a bit of an Origin-themed episode.
Yep.
So I didn't mean to offend you there.
No. Heaps taken, but it's fine. But yes, next week's episode of the Catch-Up is going to be an absolute cracker. We can't really say too much, I guess, Kat. I guess... if you enjoyed the content with Helen, I guess it's going to be somewhat similar.
Yeah. If you liked the Dolphins content, the Helen content, I've got a few of those type of things lined up over the next couple of weeks. So it's just going to add a little bit of spice into the regular mix of content. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm sorry, I've got my Invisalign in and I feel like I'm lisping more than usual.
You're not, but that's
okay,
fine.
Cool. I'm just self-conscious.
Yeah, fine. You're cruising.
Awesome.
Absolutely
Okay.
cruising. So we've got some questions sent in by the Roo crew. The link's in the description if you would like to join us in there. We have a giveaway in the Roo crew as well for every Origin game, Kat. Last time we gave Jake a New South Wales Blues jersey, a 2024 jersey.
So cool.
You've actually got to pick the topic again. Not the topic. You've got to pick the, So I said to Kat last time in the Roo crew, I said, look, I'm going to do a giveaway. The people in the Roo crew have to predict something. It could be like combined tackles of two players, combined run meters. And I said to Kat, pick two players to combine their run meters. She went Brian Toto, little Forrest Gump from out there at the Penrith Panthers.
Yep.
And then she picked Selwyn Cobbo, who you might remember came off the bench. So he could have easily ran for zero, or Reece Walsh could have got knocked out in the 7th minute and he could have played 73 minutes and ran for 200 metres. It was one of the two. Yeah. Happened to be the second. So that made it really tough. But Jake went big there and I backed that, and we'll have to decide what the a few people suggested some last night in the Roo crew.
Okay.
But there is an Origin jersey up for grabs in there for paying members in there.
I love it. And if you this isn't a Roo crew advertisement, but it may as well be. If you in one sentence or two sentences could convince people to sign up to the Roo crew, what would you say?
It's everything you want from rugby league, Kat. It is honestly, it's borderline too much rugby league. I think if I was just a normal paying member in there, it'd be a little bit overwhelming. I think you duck in, you duck out when you find something that suits you, whether it's the Supercoach content, Supercoach stats, our NRL previews. If you like the podcast, all the videos are available there in the Roo crew. There's giveaways.
A little bit of behind the scenes from the studio.
A little behind the scenes from the studio. All of our rumours that we hear, I don't post them on Instagram anymore. I put them straight in there for you guys. And outside of Dave Fafita to the Panthers, they've been pretty damn accurate this year. I don't think we've missed any of them. So you get all your extra team list stuff, everything. It's fantastic in there. So come and join the Roo crew, and if it's not for you, jump back out. But I think you'll find some value in there.
Every now and again you do see someone who jumped in and jumped out, and I do wonder what did we say wrong? But
yeah. There's been quite a few recently, actually. It's really interesting watching the numbers. Also, you get first dibs on our merchandise as well.
Yeah,
and me and Kat are wearing something that's incredibly comfy and something that we really fancy.
I have to say this is probably my favorite. I feel like I'm surrounded, by the way, by this brand. The Winfield here, Winfield there, Winfield here.
You are.
It looks great. I love the real retro-y vintage vibe, and I think this might be at some point.
It could be. We don't know.
Yeah.
Can't promise anything, but it might be. But we also, when we sold the under-19s CBA Bowl merch, I put up about 8 of these on there just because we had some around the studio that were samples and they went very, very quickly. So shout out to those that have already got them.
Shout out to Caleb who bought the CBA merch.
Man.
Caleb bought the CBA merch and then the next morning he then bought the other merch. And so he was just, we're only here because of him.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Caleb. One of my favourites. Good man. Came to the CBA Bowl the other night.
He did.
Kat, I think we both need to shut up.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we need to get into our questions from the Roo crew. What do you got for us?
All right. We're going to kick off with D's question.
Yep.
The letter D. They said, hey, Roo, do you think that Moses will step up and be the half New South Wales need moving forward?
I do think Mitch Moses has a big game tomorrow night. I'm really excited to watch Mitch go about his footy. I think that he is one of the better halfbacks in the competition. I feel super confident coming into this game with Mitch Moses. His kicking game is second to none. I've been lucky enough to watch Mitch from when he was at his Balmain days playing Harold Matts and SG Ball. Was a similar sort of age to me. He came through with, Brooksy, Teddy, those sort of guys. And to watch him all the way through, and he's had his lows, he's had his highs. And I just feel like over the last few years, he's just become a complete footballer. And 5 or 6 years ago, Kat, I probably didn't think Mitch Moses was ever going to be a guy that was going to own big stages. Now I'm super confident that he will. I feel very confident going into this game. I said before Origin 1, Nico's the best option we have, but if Mitch was available, he would be my halfback. If Nath was available, he'd be my halfback.
Yeah.
But I think out of Mitch and Nico, you need a genuine halfback, and I think Mitch is that guy. So I'm super excited to see how he goes. I know, defensively over the last few years, he has just improved out of sight. And I just love that he is a genuine halfback. He has a fantastic understanding for the game. He's a good communicator. As far as into the future, Kat, it's really interesting. If Mitch Moses wins this game, that means he'll retain the spot for game 3. If he's the winning halfback for this Origin series, interesting to see where it leaves, Nath.
It does.
And Nico would have had the same opportunity if he would have won game 1 and then won this series. Where does it leave Moses and Nath Cleary? But this is a big moment for Mitch Moses because it could really not that his career was in trouble or anything by any means, but it could really turn the tide on his career where it becomes okay. If he's the guy that's winning series, you can't take him out of the halfback role.
Yeah, I think it's the relevancy bias that we see in rugby league, right? And it's if you're the guy who's performing and you're the guy who's helping us win, then you've done it all. You deserve that spot. And I think if he can do that, then absolutely he should be in contention for that spot moving forward.
And if the Blues can win this game with Mitch Moses at halfback, they get Latrell back at centre, you might find he goes to Origin in game 3 and all of a sudden Mitch Moses is looking around the field going, okay, I've got Latrell on the left. I've got Turbo on the right. He's got all these weapons all of a sudden for him to utilise. And with those two on I think it's very tough to go to Suncorp and win, obviously. But with Latrell and Turbo, we won 3 games in Queensland a couple of years ago. It's not impossible. So the next 3 weeks is huge for the career of Mitch Moses. It's massive. And I believe he is a good enough halfback to really leave his mark on this and make a huge difference.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think all the best to Mitch in this game. And I think a lot of us are very excited to see what he's going to do. But speaking of players who are going to have to play for that spot, Dylan Edwards is obviously one of them because he got called up for game 1. It would have been his debut with the Blues, but the injury that he got in training obviously stopped that from happening, and that's why we saw Teddy come in. But he's got that spot back and we will see him in action tomorrow night. And there's a question here from Lachlan just saying, are we nervous about him in the Origin arena even though he has lifted in big times, in big games before?
Yeah, and you know what? It's a fair question. I think Dill will be okay, but you never really know how guys are going to handle Origin until they're in Origin. Dill was obviously picked to play for the Kangaroos last year, and he played very poorly, to be fair. I believe Dill will be fine. And I think the other thing that leans into people being a little bit nervous, Kat, is that the way that Penrith play hasn't been overly successful in the State of Origin arena. And I don't solely put it down to that, but I think that's the perception that people have. For me, though, Dylan Edwards, it's not like his game is... it's not like it's a set structure and there's certain things that have to go his way. He plays tough and he just takes the ball up. And I think that's all we need for the New South Wales Blues at the moment. Just his high volume work he's going to get through. I think that there's plenty in that. And I think that with a halfback like Mitch Moses, we don't need Dylan Edwards to be the greatest ball player in the world. And with strike like Latrell, I don't think we need, the greatest ball player and whatnot. I think that he'll play similar to what he plays at the Penrith Panthers. I think he will play through the middle and sort of to the right side. And then I think you'll see Mitch Moses and Jerome Luai link up on that left-hand side together. Wouldn't be surprised if you see maybe Stephen Crichton float around. Dylan Edwards, could move to both sides, obviously, but I think he'll play the way he does at Penrith. I'm just confident that Dill will do a job. I think he's at like $8 for man of the match still. I don't think it's going to be the sort of game where Dylan Edwards, I think there'll be a fair few points scored in this one. So I think that's a little bit unders, but I'm just confident that Dill will just come out and do a job. He won't overplay his hand. I just don't think he'll let us down, Dylan Edwards. And I think that we've got enough strike everywhere else just to have a high volume fullback that will do a job defensively. He is solid. He's a good communicator. I understand people's concerns because you don't know how guys are going to go in Origin until they're actually in the arena. And when people have their concerns about the Penrith system coming into Origin, all of that, Didn't play well for Australia. I get that. But personally, he's a Clive Churchill medalist. He's probably unlucky not to have 2 Clive Churchill medals, in my opinion. He's a 3-time premiership winner. Every big game Dill Edwards has played outside of that game for the Kangaroos, where, to be fair, he's playing on the wing for the first time in 5 or 6 years. He's performed. So I am more than happy to back Dylan Edwards in, and I think he is the obvious choice for us.
Couldn't agree more. I think if any guy can play big games, it's this one. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do tomorrow. Okay, this is one is from Aiden. He said, is there any merit in the claims that Latrell's defence is going to be heavily exposed? Hasn't defended in the front line for a while, so keen to hear your thoughts.
I wouldn't say it's going to be heavily exposed. I think it'll be heavily targeted, though.
Yeah.
I think Queensland would be silly not to go at Latrell. Latrell, obviously, this year, people have questioned his fitness and whatnot. And the reality is he's only played 2 games back, realistically.
Yeah.
And for me, you watch Latrell play fullback and he can do these amazing things. His ball playing sensational and, the last 2 games he's been near unstoppable. There is also a lot of times where you can catch him out of position because he isn't as fit as other fullbacks in the competition, but other fullbacks can't do the stuff that Latrell can do as well. So you got to give and take a little bit. At centre, I don't think that matters as much. But if I'm Queensland, and I'm very confident they will, Slater will have a plan to force Latrell Mitchell to do a lot of defensive work. And he'd be crazy not to. And for me, I think what they'll try and do is whenever they go down that right channel, I think they'll try and get Latrell Mitchell to be at marker. And when he is at marker, they're going to keep him there. And I think the big thing for Latrell is going to be in this game, the Queensland side, they're going to force him to make repeat efforts. And it's something he doesn't do for South Sydney. It really isn't. And I hear people say, he plays fullback at club. He swings to both sides. He doesn't swing to both sides. This is one thing that everyone complains about, that he doesn't swing to both sides. I think that at centre, he will be fine. But I think that if Queensland get him in that washing machine of getting into marker and repeat efforts, I think that's where they can take advantage of him. And if they do get him tired out there, that's where Reece Walsh, the way that he just gets on the outside shoulder of his half every single fucking time is unbelievable. And that's where I think it could potentially get exposed. At the same time, though, if New South Wales are in good ball and he's one-on-one with Val Holmes, shut the gate. It's over. There are reasons why Latrell could cost us this game potentially if Queensland get their game plan exactly right. But there's a million reasons why he could win this game of football for us as well. And I know everyone likes to focus on the negatives with Latrell, but especially for New South Wales, he's won a lot more games than he's lost. And he's been the reason for winning a lot more games than he's been the reason for losing games. There is a game plan that Queensland can come into to try and target it, and I'm sure they will. And it's up to Latrell how he responds to that and how his teammates help him out and whatnot. But for me, I think the positives do outweigh the negatives of having Latrell on this side. I don't think it'll get exposed. There's a world where it could. But I think it will definitely get targeted, and I'm very keen to see how Latrell responds to that.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with Latrell is when he is targeted and he's shut down by the opposition because he doesn't have the same impact. Obviously, that's the whole point. But look, he's been doing it for South Sydney for the past couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that he brings that same grunt, that same energy to this Blues side. But that with that said, if they do shut him down, it'll be a tough watch for me especially.
And you know what? I actually think they're going to really struggle to shut him down. I just think he is too much of a juggernaut. The way that they will shut him down is by tiring him out and making him exhausted. And that's where, everyone wants to give Latrell shit. And I've said it myself previously, I wish he'd do more work coming out of his own end. Honestly, with the back 3 that we've got of Lomax, Dylan Edwards, Brian To'o, they are arguably the 3 best players coming out of their own end in rugby league. I don't even want Latrell to do work coming out of his own end. I do not give a fuck if Latrell does not take a hit up out of his own end. It doesn't worry me in the size because I want him to be ready for when we get in that red zone to be able to go full throttle there. Yeah. So as much as you might not like to build your teams that way and whatnot, but I am happy to do it with Latrell in this game. He's coming in off only 2 games and they're going to test him in defence. They're going to try and tire him out. I just want Latrell, when we get in that red zone, to be coming onto that ball 100 miles an hour.
Agreed.
And just give it to him. And the beauty of Latrell is, Kat, you don't have to put him in good spots. You just get him the ball. Just let him do his thing. And you don't have to create an overlap. You just need to get him one-on-one with his opposition and he can absolutely terrorise them. And I think that the most dangerous thing about Latrell is as well, and we'll talk about it over the next 24 hours, everyone's talking about Latrell with the ball, how dangerous he is, but The other thing about Latrell is that he's one of those guys you've always got to have eyes on him. He's like us with Queensland. Where's Hammer? Where is he? You've always got to have eyes on him. And for me, I'm looking at like anytime try scorers and whatnot and guys with big games. Angus Crichton inside Latrell Mitchell is the best back row in rugby league right now. With all eyes on Latrell, I can see Angus really standing up and having a big game. And I think that's something that sometimes guys don't get enough credit for, is that they might not have the biggest games where, they might not come up with the big plays and whatnot, but the plays around them that are occurring because there are eyes on him. And like Queensland know, Val will know, I need someone to help me with this guy. And it can just create space for other guys. GI was like that. Like you have to almost double team these guys to be able to control them. We're the same with Hammer. And I just think around Latrell, even if it's not him delivering those big plays, he steals eyes.
It's such an interesting perspective that having him in there also alleviates pressure off players around him, because there is this focus on him.
100%, yeah.
And all he needs to do is be there and play his best, but it alleviates that pressure on those players, and we might see more from them. And it's a great way of wording it.
And when you have a look at like the way the Gold Coast Titans play, like Cam Pierre on the wing, like you watch the way that all teams defend against the Gold Coast Titans, and why there's always so much space for them is because they're all going, fuck, how are we going to stop Fafita?
Yeah.
And Fafita's as dangerous with the ball as he is without it, because he just drags eyes in. And Latrell's exactly the same. Like I think Angus Crichton to score a try, I really like that in this game, because I think everyone will be sliding out trying to control Latrell, and Angus will be there. So look, as I said, there are negatives you can find about Latrell. There are things that concern me, but there are positives. There are so many of them that he has shown time and time again. And
absolutely.
There's way, and Billy Slater will have a plan for him. That's the one thing that concerns me. Slater's never had a shot at Latrell before. He'll have something up his sleeve, but I don't know. I have full confidence in Latrell that he's a fucking winner.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Okay, this one is from Hayden. If Moses is going to be predominantly first receiver, are you confident that Luai on the left and Edwards on the right are good enough to last pass decision makers at origin level? Did I make sense there?
Yeah, you got close to making sense.
Great. Are good enough last pass decision makers at origin level. That's what I meant, especially compared to DCE and Walsh, who are elite in this role for Queensland.
Yeah, for sure. And like, who would I rather have, Walsh or DCE? Walsh and DCE for sure in those moments. But I mean, I don't like Jerome Luai and Dylan Edwards. I mean, they've won everything they've been in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they're poor decision makers. Dylan Edwards is a very different player to Reece Walsh, but there's a lot of things that Dylan Edwards brings that Reece Walsh can't bring as well. Like there's a heap of things to weigh up there. And for me, at no point have I ever sort of sat back there and gone, geez, Dylan Edwards and Jerome Luai are poor decision makers. I get where the question's coming from, and I think that who's got a higher ceiling, you would say those two Queensland boys.
Yeah.
But like, it's not something I'm concerned about at all.
I get the question also in the sense that it is obviously so important what you do in those final moments, but you got to trust that Dylan Edwards and Jerome Luai, not only have they done that in the same games, the same level of importance, but they've done it in really important moments and proven that they know exactly what to do. So I'm not worried.
And I think as well, if there is one thing that concerns me with Jerome Luai, and it's not really a concern, but you have a look at the way that Jerome Luai's played all year. Like the Penrith left centre has got a cold all season because he just comes off his left foot and scoots back to the middle, and it works for Penrith. But when you've got a Ferrari like Latrell Mitchell at left centre, that boy just needs early fucking ball. Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS policy.
Yeah.
And I just hope, and I'm very confident we don't, because Jerome Luai's had, I think, 3 guys outside him win Dally M Centre of the Year. Like, he knows how to get early ball. When Latrell Mitchell was absolutely dominating Origin a couple of years ago, his 5'8" was Jerome Luai on that edge. So that's the only thing that maybe has me a little bit worried, but I'd be shocked if Jerome Luai steps off his left foot constantly and ignores Latrell Mitchell. I just can't see it playing out like that.
I think that is very, very fair. All right, let's move on. This one is from Conrad Turpins. He said, "G'day, Roo. Is there any chance that Cameron Murray comes out a bit rusty? Going from 50 minutes of NRL in about 2 months straight to Origin seems like a huge jump, but I know these guys are machines."
Yeah, mate, and I do have my concerns there, because obviously Cam Murray hasn't played big minutes recently. He's played 1 game back for South Sydney, straight into the Origin side. But I think your last sentence, these guys are machines, and Cam Murray, there's something just about guys that they're either made of the right stuff for Origin or they're not. Cam Murray's proven that he is. If for whatever reason we're expecting Cam Murray to play 80 minutes, I'd be nervous, I'm not going to lie, because it's a big ask. But Cam Murray, with the side that we've got with Isaiah Yeo, Connor Watson, these sort of guys in the side, there's so many guys that can play through the middle. Olakau'atu can jump in there, Liam Martin as well. I'm not overly concerned about Cam Murray. I think that he will play 50, 55 minutes. If we have a couple of injuries and he has to play big minutes, okay, it's not ideal. But I just think Cam Murray's just one of those dudes. I'm so confident that when Cam Murray has to dig deep, he'll find something.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I know I've got South's bias, but we are so much better when he's there. And I don't think it matters if he's had time off. It's a muscle. He knows how to use it, and he will just like go full throttle and we'll be fine.
Yeah. If it was maybe like his first Origin, I'd be concerned. But he's been there before. He knows what it's like. Cam Murray will be okay.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. This is an interesting question from Dylan V. In terms of playing on an AFL field, how much impact do you think this will have on the two kicking games?
This is the most underrated factor in this game that I can't believe it's not being spoken about. When you grow up, these guys grow up playing league, and in particular the kickers. The vast majority of times you play on rectangle fields, and when you take it to a cricket ground like the SCG, the MCG, whatever it might be, it's amazing how much it throws some kickers because there's so much space around.
Your perspective looks very different. Instead of
throws out your perspective.
It's no longer angular, it's rounded, and so that perception is different of the field.
And I think the other thing that people sleep on a little bit is with these fields as well, when you're actually out on the field, or like when you're sitting on, the bottom seat on ground level, because they're, built for cricket, and so that the rain runs off them as well, they actually lean into the middle. So sometimes, like when you're standing in certain spots trying to kick to certain corners, the perception is a lot harder than what people give credit for. And I think that, especially in Origin, when it's so fast, you're trying to get your kicking game, you have a split second to get it exactly right, landed on a 10-cent piece. Adding those extra dimensions, I think it's a lot harder than what people give credit for. And it is something to keep an eye on. For me, though, going into this game, and, this will sound harsh, but, if it was a Nico Hines, this would actually be a factor I'd be very concerned about.
Yeah.
Because Nico is new to that halfback role. He's no stranger to putting kicks out on the full. Mitch Moses, I feel pretty confident with. I think Mitch Moses will be okay. DCE, he'll be okay as well. So thankfully, we've got halves in this game that I'm not too concerned about it. But it is something to keep in mind. I wouldn't be surprised if you do see one or two kicks go out on the full, because this is a very common thing, and not many teams play on round fields anymore.
The only saving grace for Nico in that equation could be his time in Melbourne and the fact that he may have played on more AFL fields than other players.
Even there though, like they'd probably train on some, but like that, honestly, like
it's just not the same.
It isn't the same. It really isn't. And it's, the only oval fields that I can really think of are the SCG, which even the Roosters, they had to play there over the last few years. And there was a lot of times there was kicks out on the full, because it is an awkward thing to get used to.
The game doesn't look great on an oval field, I'll be honest.
Looks dreadful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it on an oval field.
Yeah.
And I hate going out to a stadium on an oval field as well. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, you also are so far from the action, it's ridiculous.
Yes, it is. It's painful. And if you're ever at one of those grounds and you get to sit at base level on the ground, you see the rise in it as well. So I think it is something that is worth considering. I think it's a really good point. It was that
great
Dylan?
From Dylan.
Very, very good shout. Something to consider. But I think that Mitch Moses and DCA, who do the vast majority of kicking, I think these two will be okay, because they are two of the best kickers in rugby league.
I love that. And it will be really interesting to see if that plays any part in the outcome tomorrow. This one is from Ados. We love Ados. He contributes a lot to the Root
He's a
Crew.
good man.
My question is, do you think Dane Gagai will feature? He thinks that Billy will make a last-minute call, but in saying that, you never know with Mr. Slater. This is true. Anyways, have a great Arvo. Go the Maroons. Oh, no.
Yeah, he's a South fan too. He's a Queensland, so I'd love to know how that works. But anyway, I find this so interesting. I don't think Dane Gagai will come in, but I would bring him in. But I don't.
Can you tell me why you think Slater won't pick him, but why you would?
Well, my question is, if Slater was going to bring in Dane Gagai, who's he fooling? Like who's he tricking? Like he picked Selwyn Cobbo in game 1 on the bench. He then had the opportunity to pick another back on the bench, and he's gone for Kate Wool. I just like and also like got it to be a really dick move to not pick Kate Wool in your side if you didn't let him play for the Warriors on the weekend.
Yeah,
be a real dick move. I don't know. I just think Slater. I think potentially we're out thinking the room a little bit. I think Dane Gagai's there as a cultural sort of guy. I think Dane Gagai's there in case he needs to come into the side at some point just to be around the boys and whatnot. I just don't think Slater will. I don't think he's that sort of a guy to play ducks and drapes like this. I just think he picks his team and that's who he's picking. I think he's picked Kurt Capewell I just think like if you were going to pick someone that you weren't going to have on the side, would it be Kurt Capewell? And it just creates so much conversation. I don't know. It just seems strange to me. I think Slater's played games with Kurt Capewell. Kurt Capewell is a proven Origin player. He has had huge games there. I think Slater's just backing his guy in. And yeah, what would I do? I'd pick Gagai every day of the week. And as a New South Welshman, I'm terrified of Dane Gagai. And I think that if you had to put Gags on and he had to play a little bit in the back row, he had to do something, I think he'd handle himself there. I think he'd do a good enough job.
He is absolutely terrifying on the Origin stage.
He's a maniac. He's an absolute maniac. He is everything I hate about Queensland. And I love Dane Gagai.
Yeah.
I would definitely pick him because I think you want to have that coverage for the outside backs as well. And personally, I think Kurt Capewell laterally has slowed down a lot in the last few years. And if he gets put at centre, I feel very confident us going up against him. If something happens like a HIA or whatever the hell it might be. But yeah, I actually don't think Slater's going to bring him in. If Slater was going to bring Dane Gagai, who's been one of the best Maroons players ever, back into this side, surely it would have leaked by now. I'll tell you what, if Billy Slater has managed to keep that a secret all week and keep it under a lid, that just says everything you need to know about the Queensland Maroons. There is not a hope in hell that would happen with the New South Wales Blues. No way. So
Leak City,
plenty of leaks. If that's what plays out, full credit to Billy Slater and the Queensland Maroons because that's incredible.
Yeah, I personally don't think that this is going to happen, but I like it in theory, definitely.
I love it in theory.
Yeah. I love, in theory, the idea that Slater would have kept a secret like that for so long. It's so Billy Slater. It's so Billy Slater coded. It's crazy.
It would infuriate me, but God, I would respect it so much, which is pretty much everything Billy does.
Agreed.
Yeah.
For the Maroons. Okay, Now this is the final question of today, of this episode, but I think it's a really, really good one. And you actually mentioned earlier this player.
Yeah.
So this is from Big Max, like the hamburger, in parentheses. Thank you, sir. If Turbo was fit, do you think he could force his way into this Blues back line?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Oh, it's so tough. Isn't it funny, though, if we'd had this conversation 2 years ago, you just say yes and you move on? Yeah,
it's an absolute no-brainer. I personally, if everyone's fit, I think Latrell walks into the side. I think Brian Tyler has to stay on the side. I personally, if I had to, and that only leaves two other players, Stephen Crichton, Zach Lomax. I think Stephen Crichton has to be on the side. I think he is the best defensive centre in rugby league, and I feel I cannot believe I feel comfortable knowing that Hamiso is going to be playing left centre, and I feel comfortable we're going to be okay. Because we got Stephen Crichton.
It's the critter effect.
It's the critter effect. He is an absolute fucking weapon. He is the best defensive centre in rugby league. Hopefully that doesn't get pulled down tomorrow evening, but I feel very confident having him there. I think that Stephen Crichton is the best option at centre. Right wing, you've got Zach Lomax, who's incredible and doesn't deserve to get dropped or anything, but if we go to a decider up there and Tommy Turbo's available, can you leave him out? It's
so tough.
I don't know. I don't know how you do it, how you get him in, what you do. It's brutal. Honestly, based on Zach Lomax's performance in game one where he was tremendous, I thought he was one of our best. Are you almost closer to dropping Dylan Edwards than you are to dropping Zach Lomax?
And playing Turbo at fullback.
I don't know.
See, I don't know how I feel about that either.
Lomax has shown that he can do it. Dylan Edwards hasn't yet.
This is true.
In Origin, like, I don't know, I'm just...
You know what? Let's have this conversation after we've seen how Dill Edwards plays.
Oh, for sure.
Otherwise,
yeah.
like you said, Turbo can walk into this side and we can get rid of Dylan Edwards. But until we've seen him in action, it's a really tough one. Because in my mind, I've got Dylan Edwards who's stepped up in those key Panthers games in my mind. But is that how he's going to play in Origin? We don't know yet.
And you also, like, I believe Turbo's going to return in round 18. So that means he will play round 18. Then he's going to have to get picked off one game. So for me, my experiences with Turbo coming back, watching him, he tends to be a little bit hesitant on his return. If he had 2 or 3 games under his belt, I'd be happy to bring him in. But there would be part of me that would be hesitant to bring him in. And I think you've also got to think about, Kat, the cultural side of things. What is it saying if New South Wales put up a huge fight in game 1 where they're down 12 players and Zach Lomax absolutely kills it and stands and delivers in that game? Game 2, if they win and he plays well, which I'm confident Zach will, do you drop him for game 3? And it's not because of form. It's just because someone else that's got the aura of Turbo can come in. But it would be a very big call. It's a situation that's going to be very interesting to watch because, you know, as I said, Turbo, I think he tends to come back hesitant. But, I mean, we've just seen what Latrell Mitchell did with an Origin jersey online.
Exactly.
I mean, Turbo, I'm not sure who they play in round 18, the Manly Seagulls. They play the Cowboys in North Queensland.
I was going to say, I think
night.
that's the North Queensland game.
Yeah, wow. I'll tell you what's going to be very interesting from a Supercoach point of view, Kat. If Turbo doesn't get picked in Origin, he plays round 19 against the Newcastle Knights at Brookvale Oval on the Sunday.
And he rips them to shreds.
Is there a world where you could pick a Turbo just on the bench and just have him in your side?
I think so.
But then do you go with Connor Watson as well? Like, you're going to run with Connor Watson and a Turbo on your bench? That's where it gets...
It's very tough.
Because, you know, the other thing is as well, you go up to Suncorp, it's a fast track up there. There can be a lot of points scored at Suncorp. Having a guy like Turbo.
You know how I feel about Turbo.
I know, yeah.
You know how I feel about Turbo. And I think the only reason I've been okay with the fact that he's not in this lineup is because he was unfit to play. Like, if had he not been selected, I would have been throwing hands, punching walls. But I think tomorrow's game is going to be really interesting because I think that will be the decider for whether or not Turbo has to play for that jersey, or if Dill Edwards is so good that nothing really changes in this side, or we win and we win convincingly. Then do we change things? Do we need a Turbo on the bench? Or if you've got the talent, why wouldn't you just throw it in there? I don't know. There's so many questions.
And this is where, if we do win game 2 and we're looking at, we're 10 days away from going to Suncorp Stadium trying to win a decider, which is seemingly mission impossible. Can you afford not to have a Turbo? Do you just need to go with every possible weapon that you've got?
Yeah, it's true.
It's a decision that I would not want to make.
No.
We have to win game 2 first before we even consider that sort of stuff. But, yeah, it's going to be a huge talking point. It will probably be the talking point leading into game 3 if the Blues win game 2, which I personally think they will. The last thing I want is a dead rubber. I think that the Blues will be determined and ready to go. Good questions.
Very good question. I think this last one's got my brain really ticking. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens tomorrow. And then I think we should almost talk about this again off the back of that and see how we feel about it. Yeah, tomorrow night.
Not far away.
Super Bowl number 2 of the year.
Super Bowl number 2. How good. I'll be in here at the CBA Centre of Excellence. I'll be live reacting on the Instagram page and whatnot, and then I'll be getting straight into the review to come straight out for you guys.
The review.
And then we've got the catch-up next week, something big incoming on Tuesday night. It's very exciting.
We sure do. So thank you for tuning in. Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
We need to win tomorrow. We need to level out the playing field just so that game 3 is really exciting and fun. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for the catch-up. Thank you to those in the Roo Crew that sent in your questions. And there is a link to the Roo Crew in the description if you would so like to join the party. It's a great time over there. We have so much fun.
We do. It's a great time.
We do.
Link in the description. Hooroo.
See you guys.